At my daughter's funeral, her husband threw me out of my own house. I'm Harold Preston, but everybody calls me Hank. What happened next changed everything. Picture this, your child just died, you're grieving, and your son-in-law looks you in the eye and says, "Stop crying, pack your bags and get out of my house now." He called me a worthless old man in front of everyone at my daughter's funeral. But here's what Tony didn't know, the house he was kicking me out of. I built it myself in 1989. The money he thought he inherited? $925,000 that was always mine. For 6 years, he lived off my generosity while treating me like I was some charity case. Instead of arguing, I just walked away. Sometimes silence is the most powerful response of all. What Tony discovered 3 weeks later taught both of us that assumptions can cost you everything. Let me start from the beginning. I'm 58 years old, been a construction contractor for 35 years until I retired 2 years ago. Built Preston Construction from nothing but a pickup truck and a toolbox. The signs were there from the beginning with Tony. I just chose to ignore them because my daughter Rebecca loved him. When Rebecca died from cancer 2 months ago, Tony immediately took charge. "Don't worry about the arrangements, Hank," he said. "I'll handle everything." What he really meant was, "Stay out of my way, old man." At the funeral home, he made every decision, the casket, the flowers, even the music. When I suggested Rebecca's favorite song, the one she used to hum while helping me in the workshop, he cut me off. "That's too depressing, Hank," Tony said. "We need something more uplifting." I watched him command the room in his $500 black suit, directing everyone like he was the director of this tragic play. The guy worked in marketing, so everything had to be about image and control. Meanwhile, I sat in my old gray suit, the one I'd worn to my wife Dorothy's funeral 3 years earlier, feeling like a ghost at my own daughter's service. Tony had this way of making himself the center of attention even at Rebecca's funeral. He positioned himself at the front of the room, shaking hands and accepting condolences like he was the grieving patriarch. Don't get me wrong, the guy was hurting. Rebecca was his wife, but there's something different between genuine grief and performed grief, you know? I'd seen it during the months of her illness too. When Rebecca was going through chemo, Tony would post these long Facebook updates about our journey and staying strong together. Meanwhile, I was the one driving her to appointments when he had important meetings. I was the one sitting with her during treatments when he was traveling for work. But that day, at Riverside Funeral Home on Brook Park Road, Tony was playing the role of devoted husband perfectly. He had Rebecca's co-workers from the hospital in tears with his speech about their beautiful life together. He thanked everyone for their support of our family during this difficult time. Our family. Like I wasn't sitting right there in the front pew. The second sign came during the reception at our house. My house, technically, though Tony had been treating it like his since Rebecca's death. The place was packed with people I'd known for decades. Neighbors from Maple Street, guys I'd worked construction with, Rebecca's nursing school friends, even some of my old customers. Tony pulled me aside in the kitchen I'd built with my own hands back in '89, the same kitchen where I'd taught Rebecca how to make Dorothy's famous apple pie. The same kitchen where we'd planned her wedding 6 years ago, back when I thought Tony was just enthusiastic instead of controlling. "Hank, we need to talk about your situation." My situation? I was standing in my own kitchen, surrounded by cabinets I'd hung and countertops I'd installed, and this guy was talking about my situation. "You're financially dependent on us now. Rebecca was supporting you, and with her gone," he shrugged like he was discussing the weather. "I can't carry that burden." Burden, that word hit me harder than a sledgehammer to the chest. Here I was, 2 hours after burying my only child, and my son-in-law was calling me a burden. "I've been more than generous letting you stay here," he continued, "but this house is mine now. Everything is mine. Rebecca left it all to me." The way he said it, so matter-of-fact, so confident, like ownership was just something you declared rather than something you documented with deeds and tax records and 33 years of mortgage payments. I nodded slowly. Tony saw that nod as defeat. What he didn't see was calculation. He had no idea that Rebecca had never owned this house. She lived here, yes, grew up here, absolutely. But owned it? Never. He also didn't know about the filing cabinet in the basement workshop. 4 drawers of meticulously organized business records going back 35 years. A contractor learns to keep every receipt, every permit, every piece of paper. You never know when some inspector is going to show up asking questions or when the IRS wants to see proof of a deduction from 1995. Most importantly, he didn't know about the trust, but I'm getting ahead of myself. The funeral guests saw what Tony wanted them to see. A successful marketing executive taking charge during a family crisis, and an old man who couldn't handle his own affairs. They watched him shake hands and accept condolences like he was the head of the family now. Meanwhile, I sat quietly in Rebecca's old recliner, the one I'd built for her 18th birthday when she was heading off to nursing school. It was solid oak, mortise and tenon joints, built to last generations. Rebecca used to joke that it would outlive us all. Now it would outlive her too. From that chair, I listened to Tony paint me as the dependent father-in-law. The guy had a gift for narrative. I'll give him that. In marketing, they call it messaging, but it's really just a fancy word for storytelling. And Tony was telling a hell of a story. Hank's having a hard time adjusting. I heard him tell our neighbor Carol Murphy. She was standing by the kitchen island, holding one of Dorothy's good china plates loaded with casserole from the church ladies. The poor man doesn't understand modern finances. Rebecca handled everything for him. Carol shot me a sympathetic look. She'd known me for 33 years, since the day I broke ground on this lot with my own bulldozer. She'd watched me frame this house, wire it, plumb it, finish it. She'd seen me start Preston Construction with nothing but a business license and determination. But even she seemed to believe Tony's version of reality. That's when I realized something important about people. They see what they expect to see. Tony expected to see a grieving widower who couldn't manage on his own, so that's what he saw. The old Ford F-150 I drove instead of something flashy. The simple clothes I wore instead of expensive suits. The quiet way I handled my grief instead of making a show of it. He mistook humility for helplessness, quiet for weak, generous for desperate. It was an understandable mistake, really. I'd spent 3 years since Dorothy's death living simply. No need for expensive toys or status symbols when you're learning to live alone. No point in buying a new truck when the old one still ran fine. No reason to upgrade my wardrobe when my work clothes were retired along with me. Rebecca understood that. She respected my choice to downsize my lifestyle. "Dad, you earned the right to live however makes you happy," she'd told me after Dorothy's funeral. "Don't let anyone tell you how to grieve or how to spend your money." But Tony, he measured worth by appearance, by volume, by who controlled the conversation. He was about to learn that the most dangerous person in any room is the one who doesn't need to prove anything. The thing about Tony was that he'd never built anything with his hands, never had to calculate materials for a foundation or figure out load-bearing requirements for a second-story addition. In construction, you learn that the most important work happens where people can't see it. The foundation, the framing, the electrical rough-in, all the stuff that makes everything else possible. Tony lived in the world of surfaces, marketing campaigns and brand messaging, and quarterly reports. He looked at my house and saw outdated decor instead of quality craftsmanship. He looked at my truck and saw poverty instead of practicality. He looked at my quiet demeanor and saw weakness instead of confidence. As the afternoon wore on, I watched him work the room like he was hosting a networking event. He had this way of positioning himself in conversations, always making sure he was included, always steering the discussion back to himself and Rebecca. When Rebecca and I bought this place, Rebecca and I always planned to update. Rebecca and I were discussing, bought this place. That was a good one. Around 4 o'clock, people started to leave. The church ladies packed up their casserole dishes. The neighbors offered their final condolences. Rebecca's work friends hugged Tony and promised to stay in touch. One by one, the house emptied until it was just Tony and me. The silence felt heavy, different from the comfortable quiet I'd grown used to over the past 3 years. This was the silence of two men who didn't really know each other, who'd only tolerated each other for Rebecca's sake, now forced to coexist without her as a buffer. Tony was in the kitchen, stacking dishes and putting away leftovers with the efficiency of someone who'd obviously spent time managing Rebecca's household during her illness. I had to admit, whatever his faults, he'd stepped up during the hardest months. He'd handled insurance calls and medical appointments and all the administrative nightmare that comes with cancer treatment. But stepping up during a crisis and understanding a family's history are two different things. As the last guests left that Tuesday evening, Tony cornered me by the front door I'd hung myself 33 years ago. The same door Rebecca had run through as a kid, always forgetting to close it gently. The same door she'd walked through as a bride 6 years ago, Tony's ring on her finger and hope in her eyes. I meant what I said, Hank. This arrangement isn't working anymore. I looked around the living room I'd framed and finished, the hardwood floors I'd installed plank by plank, the crown molding I'd measured and cut with Rebecca when she was 12 years old and wanted to help with everything. I understand, I said quietly. But Tony had no idea what I understood, and he definitely had no idea what was coming next. Wednesday morning brought clarity and coffee in equal measure. I sat at my kitchen table, the one Dorothy and I had bought at a garage sale in 1988, back when we were still saving every penny for the house construction. That table had seen a lot of conversations over the years. Business planning sessions when I was growing Preston Construction, homework help sessions when Rebecca was struggling with algebra, heart-to-heart talks when Dorothy was sick and we were both scared of what came next. Now it was hosting a different kind of planning session. I made a list, not of what I was losing, but of what Tony thought he was gaining. The house. 2,800 square feet of memories on Maple Street in suburban Cleveland. Current market value, according to recent sales in the neighborhood, $385,000. I'd built it for about $130,000 back in '89, doing most of the labor myself on weekends and evenings. Sweat equity, they call it. Though I'd never sold my sweat to Tony. The business assets. Preston Construction might be officially retired, but the tools and equipment were still valuable. The workshop in the basement alone had $15,000 worth of precision instruments. Table saw, planer, router setup, drill press, all the machinery I'd collected over 35 years of professional craftsmanship. Tony probably figured he could liquidate it all for beer money. The life insurance, Rebecca's policy through her nursing job, $75,000. I knew Tony had already started spending that money in his head, probably planning some grand gesture trip to process his grief somewhere expensive and photogenic. Marketing guys love their personal branding, even in tragedy. My dignity. That was the big one. Watching Tony parade around like he'd inherited a kingdom when he'd actually inherited nothing at all. But here's what really bothered me. It wasn't the money or even the house, it was the erasure. Tony was systematically removing every trace of the life Dorothy, Rebecca, and I had built here. He'd already boxed up Dorothy's photos from the mantle. 3 years of memories packed away like seasonal decorations. Rebecca's childhood drawings were gone from the refrigerator. Even my old contractor licenses had disappeared from the den wall, the ones I'd hung there proudly when I first got my general contractor's license in 1985. I'm redecorating, he'd explained when I asked about Dorothy's photos. Rebecca always said this place needed updating. Updating, as if 33 years of memories were outdated software that needed patches. Rebecca had never said any such thing. She loved this house exactly as it was. She'd grown up running through these rooms, learning to cook in this kitchen, doing homework at this table. When she brought Tony home for the first time, she'd given him the full tour, pointing out every detail with pride. My dad built this whole place himself, she'd told him, even the cabinets. But Tony didn't see craftsmanship when he looked around. He saw opportunities for improvement. Open concept this, stainless steel, that hardwood floors to replace the perfectly good hardwood floors that were already there. In his mind, anything built before 2010 was automatically obsolete. He gave me 30 days. 30 days to find somewhere else to live on what he assumed was Social Security and nothing else. 30 days to pack up 4 decades and pretend they never happened. The cruelest part was how confident he was about it all. Tuesday afternoon, he'd handed me a printed timeline, actually sat down at his laptop and typed it up like I was a project to be managed. December 15th, he said, pointing to the date circled in red. That gives you time to find a nice senior community, somewhere more appropriate for your situation. Your situation, there was that phrase again. Like being 58 and retired was some kind of disability that required institutional care. I've already looked into a few places, he continued, pulling out brochures like he was doing me a favor. Sunset Manor has openings. It's only $900 a month for a studio apartment. $900 a month. He expected me to spend my entire Social Security check on rent and somehow survive on nothing else. The man had obviously never lived on a budget in his life. What about food, I asked. Transportation, medical bills. He shrugged like these were minor details. There are programs for people in your situation. Food stamps, Medicaid, the government takes care of senior citizens. The government? Like I was some charity case who'd never contributed anything to society. Like I hadn't paid into Social Security for 35 years. Like I hadn't built a successful business and employed dozens of people over the decades. That's when I realized Tony didn't just want me gone. He wanted me grateful for the opportunity to leave. He wanted me to thank him for giving me 30 days instead of 0. To appreciate his generosity in not calling the police to have me removed immediately. But Wednesday morning, sitting with my coffee and my list, I had a different realization. Tony had made one critical assumption that was about to cost him everything. He assumed that Rebecca owned everything he was claiming. Think about it, he'd been married to her for 6 years. He'd lived in this house for 6 years. But had he ever seen a deed, a mortgage statement, any document that proved ownership of anything? Why would he? Rebecca handled the household finances, just like Dorothy had before her. It's old-fashioned maybe, but it worked for us. The woman manages the day-to-day money, the man handles the big-picture investments in property. Traditional division of labor. Except Rebecca had never actually handled my business finances. She brought groceries when I needed them, drove me to doctor appointments after Dorothy died, helped with yard work when her nursing schedule allowed. But the money, the investments, the property, that was always mine to manage. Tony saw Rebecca's helpfulness and assumed dependency. He saw my gratitude and assumed obligation. He saw 3 years of quiet grief and assumed defeat. If I said nothing, if I just packed my bags and shuffled off to Sunset Manor like a good little senior citizen, what message would that send? That bullies win. That volume beats truth, that if you're loud enough and confident enough, you can rewrite history and steal someone's life. The stakes weren't just financial, they were about respect, about honoring Rebecca's memory properly instead of letting some marketing executive turn her childhood home into his personal renovation project, about proving that 35 years of hard work and honest business meant something. But I had something Tony didn't know about, something that would change everything. I just needed to find the right moment to use it. The moment came sooner than I expected. Thursday morning, Tony let himself into my house with Rebecca's key. I was having breakfast when I heard the front door open. No knock, no good morning. He walked in like he owned the place, which in his mind he did. The sound of that key turning made something cold settle in my chest. Rebecca had given him that key when they got engaged, back when I thought he was just eager to be part of the family. Now he was using it to invade my space, to assert ownership that existed only in his imagination. "Hank, we need to talk," he announced, marching into the kitchen with a manila folder under his arm. The guy was dressed for the office, pressed khakis, button-down shirt, leather messenger bag slung over his shoulder. He had that corporate energy that marketing people always carry, like they're perpetually late for an important meeting. About what, your finances? He sat down across from me without being invited, spreading his papers across my kitchen table like he was conducting a business meeting. "I've been thinking about your situation, and I need to understand exactly what Rebecca was covering for you." I took a sip of coffee, studying him over the rim of my mug. The same mug Dorothy had bought me for Father's Day in 1994, world's greatest dad in faded blue letters. Rebecca had picked it out herself when she was 8 years old, so proud to spend her allowance money on something special. "Such as?" I asked. "The utilities, the property taxes, the insurance." He opened his folder and pulled out a legal pad covered in his handwriting. Marketing guys love their lists and action items. "Rebecca never told me the exact amounts, but I need to know so I can budget properly." "Budget for what?" "For taking over those payments, obviously." He looked at me like I was slow. "Until you move out, I'll have to cover everything Rebecca was covering for you." I set down my coffee cup carefully, and what exactly do you think Rebecca was covering? Everything. The mortgage, the taxes, the electric bill. You're on a fixed income, Hank. Social Security doesn't stretch that far. There it was. The assumption that had been driving this whole conversation from the beginning. Tony genuinely believed I was living on government benefits and family charity. "Is that what Rebecca told you?" Tony's pen stopped moving. "What do you mean?" "I mean, did Rebecca specifically tell you she was paying my bills?" "She didn't have to tell me. It's obvious." He gestured around the kitchen with his pen. "How else could you afford to live here? This house is worth over $380,000. And how do you know what it's worth?" "I work in marketing, Hank. I know how to research property values. I've been looking at comps in the neighborhood." Of course he had, probably already planning his exit strategy, figuring out how much cash he could pull out of my house to fund whatever his next venture was going to be. "But you've never seen the deed," I said. The question hung in the air like sawdust after a power saw cuts through wood. Tony's confident expression flickered for just a moment. The same look I'd seen on subcontractors' faces when they realized they'd been using the wrong measurements for the past 3 days. "I don't need to see the deed." "Rebecca inherited this house when Dorothy died. Did she?" "Of course she did. Who else would get it?" I stood up slowly and walked to the sink, rinsing my coffee cup with deliberate care. The same sink I'd installed in 1989 connected to plumbing I'd run myself through the basement in crawl spaces. Every pipe, every joint, every connection planned and executed according to code. "You know, Tony, you've made a lot of assumptions about my finances." "They're not assumptions, they're facts." "Really? What other facts do you have?" He consulted his legal pad like it contained the secrets of the universe. "Rebecca told me you never contributed a dime to this house." I turned around slowly. "Is that what Rebecca told you?" "Yes." "Interesting." Because I built this house in 1989, bought the land, hired the subcontractors, supervised every day of construction myself. Tony's face tightened. That was 33 years ago. Things change, some things. Not ownership. Look, Hank, I know this is hard for you. Losing Rebecca, having to face reality about your financial situation, but denial won't help. What denial? Pretending you're not dependent on family charity. The word charity landed like a punch to the gut. I dried my hands on the dish towel, taking my time. The same dish towel Dorothy had embroidered with little roosters back when she was going through her country kitchen phase. Tony, let me ask you something. What? In 6 years of marriage, did Rebecca ever show you a mortgage statement? We kept our finances separate. Did she ever mention making house payments? We didn't discuss every detail of her expenses. Did you ever see her write a check for property taxes? His silence was answer enough. Here's what I think happened, I said, leaning against the counter. Rebecca helped me around the house, picked up groceries, did some yard work, and you assumed that meant she was supporting me financially, because that's what it looked like. Appearances can be deceiving. Tony stood up, clearly frustrated. The marketing executive composure was starting to crack. Fine. Show me the deed then. Prove you own this house. I don't have to prove anything to you. Yes, you do, because I'm Rebecca's husband and I inherited everything, did you? Stop answering questions with questions. Stop making assumptions. We stared at each other across the kitchen. Tony's marketing executive composure was cracking like old paint on a weathered deck. You have until December 15th, he said finally. After that, I'm changing the locks. We'll see about that. He gathered his papers and headed for the door. We'll see about what, but I just smiled and started loading the dishwasher. Some conversations are better finished with lawyers present. After Tony left, I stood in my kitchen for a long time, looking around at everything I'd built. The custom cabinets with their solid maple doors. The tile backsplash Dorothy had picked out, installed one square at a time over 3 weekends. The breakfast nook where Rebecca had done her homework every day after school. This wasn't just a house to me. It was a monument to everything I'd worked for, everything I'd accomplished, everything I'd provided for my family. And some marketing executive who'd been part of our lives for 6 years thought he could just take it, because he had louder opinions and fancier clothes, not on my watch. Friday afternoon, I did something I hadn't done in months. I went down to the basement workshop. The basement had always been my sanctuary. 3 levels of organization that would make a Swiss watchmaker weep with envy. Toll pegboard along one wall. Each tool outlined in black marker so I'd know immediately if something was missing. Workbench with a butcher block top I'd made from reclaimed oak. And in the corner, the filing cabinet that held the story of my entire professional life. Dorothy used to joke that I was like a pack rat down there, storing away every document and receipt like they were gold bars. You never know when you'll need something, I'd tell her. She'd roll her eyes and remind me that normal people didn't keep 35 years of business records in alphabetical order, but I wasn't normal people. I was a contractor who'd learned early that paper trails tell stories, and stories protect you when memories fail or people lie. The filing cabinet stood exactly where I'd left it. 4 drawers of meticulous organization. Each drawer labeled by decade, each file folder labeled by category. Each document filed chronologically. It was beautiful in its own way, like a well-built foundation that nobody would ever see, but everything depended on. I pulled out the bottom drawer first, 1980s. The decade that changed everything inside. I found the folder I was looking for, Real Estate 447 Maple Street. The first document was the original land purchase agreement, April 8, 1989. Harold Preston, buyer $52,000 for the lot. I'd saved for 3 years to make that purchase, working every weekend and holiday, taking on side jobs, living off hamburger and beans to put away every spare dollar. The second document was the construction contract, Preston Construction Company. But this wasn't a contract with some other builder. This was the paperwork I'd filed with the city, listing myself as both owner and general contractor. The permit fees alone had cost me $2,400, which felt like a fortune at the time. The third document was the most important. The original deed recorded April 15, 1989, owner, Harold Preston, no co-signer, no joint ownership, no mortgage. I'd paid cash for everything using money saved from 12 years of construction work. Tony had no idea, of course. He'd been 11 years old in 1989, probably more concerned with Nintendo games than property law. But there was more in that folder, much more. Insurance policies showing Harold Preston as the sole insured party. Property tax receipts stretching back 33 years, all paid by me from my business accounts. utility connection agreements in my name, even the original survey map with my signature authorizing the work. Rebecca's name appeared nowhere in any of these documents because Rebecca had been born 2 years after I'd already built and moved into this house. I pulled out the second drawer, 1990s, more of the same. Property taxes paid annually by Harold Preston. Insurance premiums paid quarterly by Harold Preston. Contractor license renewals, business permits, even landscaping receipts. All documenting continuous ownership and maintenance by the same person who'd built the place. The 2000s drawer told the same story, and the 2010s and the most recent file from 2022, an unbroken chain of ownership documentation that would make any title company happy. But the real surprise was in the very back of the bottom drawer, in a folder labeled Trust Documents Private. This was the folder Tony definitely didn't know about. Inside were papers that would change everything, documents that told a story he couldn't imagine. The first paper was a trust agreement dated March 20th, 1987, 2 years before Rebecca was even born. The Harold and Dorothy Preston Family Trust, established back when I was just starting to make real money with the construction company and wanted to make sure my family would be taken care of no matter what happened to me. The second paper was a bank statement from First National Bank of Ohio. Current balance as of November 30th, 2022, $925,487. The third paper was a list of trust beneficiaries. Rebecca's name was there, yes, but not as an inheritor, as a beneficiary during her lifetime, with specific terms and conditions. Terms and conditions that Tony had never bothered to ask about. The trust was complicated, the way these things always are when you have a business to protect and a family to provide for, but the basic structure was simple. Dorothy and I were the original trustees. After Dorothy's death, I became the sole trustee. Rebecca received monthly allowances for education, housing assistance, and family support. But ownership? That always remained with the trust, which meant it remained with me. Rebecca had lived comfortably because I made sure she lived comfortably. The nursing degree I'd helped pay for, the wedding I'd funded, the car payments I'd covered when she was just starting out, the down payment assistance when she wanted to buy furniture. All of it flowed from this trust. All of it remained under my control. Tony saw Rebecca's comfortable lifestyle and assumed she was independently wealthy. He saw her generosity toward me and assumed it came from her own earnings. He never imagined that the money flowing from Rebecca to me was actually my own money flowing back home. It's funny how assumptions work. You see what fits your expectations and ignore what doesn't. Tony expected successful young couples to support their aging parents. So when he saw Rebecca helping me, he assumed dependency. He never considered the possibility that I was helping her. The irony was perfect. For 6 years, Tony had been living off my generosity while building a narrative about my dependence on his wife. He'd been spending money that ultimately came from my trust while calling me a burden on his household. But there was one more document in that folder. One that would matter most when the time came for truth-telling. Rebecca's life insurance policy, $75,000, just like Tony said, but the beneficiary wasn't Tony. The beneficiary was the Harold and Dorothy Preston Family Trust, which meant the beneficiary was me. I'd set it up that way years ago. Back when Rebecca first started nursing school, the idea was that if anything happened to her before she had a family of her own, the money would flow back into the trust to be used for family support or charitable purposes. Rebecca had understood and agreed to the arrangement. "It's your money anyway, Dad," she'd said. Might as well keep it simple. Tony had been spending money that was never his to begin with, making plans with resources that belonged to someone else, building a future on a foundation that didn't exist. I closed the filing cabinet and headed back upstairs. In the kitchen, I made myself a sandwich and thought about timing. Tony had given me until December 15th to move out. Today was November 25th. That gave me exactly 3 weeks to decide how to handle this situation. I could call him right now, explain the truth, show him the documents, watch his world collapse in real time. The nuclear option, quick, decisive, and absolutely devastating to his confidence. Or I could wait, let him keep making assumptions. Let him dig the hole deeper. Let him learn the lesson the hard way. As I ate my sandwich, I remembered something my old business partner used to say back in the early days of Preston Construction. Eddie Kowalski, may he rest in peace. Hank, he'd tell me when we were dealing with difficult customers, sometimes the best negotiation strategy is letting the other guy talk himself into a corner. Tony was definitely talking himself into a corner. The question was, how deep did I want to let him dig before I stopped him? I looked around the kitchen I'd designed 33 years ago, the cabinets I'd built with my own hands, the countertops I'd templated and installed. The windows I'd measured and ordered and framed in perfectly square. My house, my trust, my choice. Tony was about to learn that respect isn't negotiable. But first, he needed to finish digging. The weekend passed quietly. Tony was apparently giving me space to process my new reality, which was generous of him. I used the time to organize my thoughts and plan my strategy. Saturday, I drove out to Riverside Cemetery to visit Dorothy and Rebecca. The headstones were simple granite markers, nothing fancy. Dorothy had always said she wanted people to remember her life, not her grave. Rebecca's marker was still so new it looked out of place among the weathered stones around it. I sat on the bench I'd installed near Dorothy's grave 3 years ago and told them both about Tony's assumptions. Dorothy would have laughed at the situation. She'd always been good at seeing the humor in other people's foolishness. "That boy's got more confidence than sense," she would have said. Rebecca would have been mortified. She'd always tried to keep peace between Tony and me, smoothing over his occasional rudeness, making excuses for his need to be the center of attention. "He's just enthusiastic, Dad," she'd say. "He means well." Sunday morning brought the worst of Tony. I was getting ready for church when he arrived with 3 of his marketing colleagues. He'd invited them for what he called a consultation about the house's potential. I heard them before I saw them, Tony's voice carrying through the front door like he was conducting a sales presentation. "This place has incredible bones, but the decor is so outdated. Classic old man style, they walked through my house like it was already theirs." 3 people I'd never met, wandering through rooms where I'd raised my daughter, making judgments about my life's work. "Oh my God, Tony, this crown molding is gorgeous," said a blonde woman in expensive boots. "Is it original?" "From 1989, Tony replied, like he'd been there when I'd cut and installed every piece by hand. "Hank built this place, but he has no eye for modern design. Look at this wallpaper and that furniture. It's like a museum." I stood at the top of the stairs listening to them catalog my life like it was a garage sale. The wallpaper Dorothy had picked out for the dining room. The furniture we'd saved up for piece by piece. The photographs documenting 33 years of holidays and birthdays and ordinary Tuesday evenings. "The bones are definitely there," said another woman, probably another marketing executive, "but you'll need to gut the kitchen. Those cabinets are so 90s. Already planning on it," Tony said. "Hank will be moving to a senior community soon, so I'll have full control over renovations, full control over my kitchen." The one Dorothy and I had planned together for 6 months, sketching layouts on napkins and measuring cabinet spaces with a tape measure I still kept in the workshop. I came downstairs wearing my church clothes. 3 people I'd never met were standing in my living room taking photos with their phones like tourists at a museum. "Hank?" Tony's voice was artificially bright, perfect timing. "I want you to meet some colleagues." He introduced them like I was a curiosity. "This is Hank, Rebecca's father. He's the original owner, but he's transitioning to a more suitable living situation." Transitioning, like I was a business process that needed to be managed and optimized. "Mr. Preston," said the blonde one, "your house has such character. You must have put a lot of work into it." "Some," I said. "Tony tells us you're moving to Sunset Manor. That's such a nice facility." I looked at Tony. "Is that what I'm doing?" "We discussed this, Hank. December 15th. Remember? I remember you discussing it." An uncomfortable silence settled over the group. The marketing people exchanged those careful glances that office workers use when a meeting starts going sideways. "Well," said the blonde one, "we should probably let you get to church." "Actually," Tony said, "Hank, while everyone's here, maybe you could tell them about the maintenance issues. The roof leak, the furnace problems." I felt something cold settle in my stomach. There was no roof leak. The furnace was 3 years old, installed by a crew I'd supervised personally. "I'm not aware of any maintenance issues," I said carefully. "Hank, you know the upstairs bathroom faucet drips and the basement gets damp in the spring. The faucet needed a 75-cent washer. The basement had been dry for 20 years thanks to the French drain system I'd installed during construction. Hank's very attached to this place." Tony explained to his colleagues, "Sometimes he doesn't see problems that are obvious to others." "Problems like what?" I asked. "Like the fact that you can't afford to maintain a house this size anymore." The room went quiet. Even the marketing people looked uncomfortable now. They'd come here expecting a casual tour of a house their colleague had inherited, not a public intervention about an old man's finances. "Can't afford it?" I asked. "Hank, we've been through this. Your Social Security barely covers basic living expenses, and you know this how? Because I'm not blind. You drive a 15-year-old truck. You shop with coupons. You haven't updated anything in this house since the Clinton administration." One of the marketing people cleared her throat. Maybe we should reschedule this tour. No, it's fine, Tony said quickly. Hank understands the situation. He's had 3 years to adjust to reality since Dorothy died. What reality is that, I asked? That you're a 58-year-old man on a fixed income who can't handle a 2,800 square foot house anymore. 58-year-old contractor, I corrected. Retired contractor. There's a difference. Is there? The point is, Tony continued, building steam. Now, you've been living off Rebecca's generosity for 3 years, and now that Rebecca's gone, you need to face reality. The words hung in the air like chemical fumes. The 3 marketing people were actively looking for exits now. This wasn't the house tour they'd signed up for. Rebecca's generosity, I repeated. Yes, Rebecca paid your property taxes. Rebecca covered your utilities. Rebecca made sure you had groceries and medical care. Did she? You know she did. And you know this because I was married to her. I saw her writing the checks. What checks? Tony's face flushed red. The checks for your expenses. Did you see her write checks to the county for property taxes? She handled those things online. Did you see her pay my electric bill? She transferred money to your account. Did you ever see bank statements showing these transfers? We kept our finances separate. So you never actually saw any of these payments. The blonde marketing person stepped forward. You know what, Tony? This feels like a family discussion. Maybe we should give you some privacy. No, Tony said sharply. This needs to be said. Hank, you cannot keep living in denial about your financial situation. What denial? The denial that you're anything other than a burden on this family. The word echoed through the room. Even Tony seemed surprised he'd said it out loud. A burden, I said quietly. I'm sorry, but yes, you've been a burden since Dorothy died. Rebecca was too kind to say it, but someone has to. Too kind to say what? That supporting you was bankrupting her. The property taxes alone are $9,200 a year. Add utilities, maintenance, your medical expenses. He was building steam now, letting 3 years of frustration pour out in front of witnesses. Rebecca spent $35,000 last year keeping you afloat, at least $35,000. And now she's gone and I'm supposed to pick up that burden. I have my own life to think about. The marketing people were edging toward the door like they were escaping a building fire. So you're throwing me out, I said. I'm giving you 3 weeks to find appropriate housing. That's more generous than most people would be. Generous. Yes, generous. Because frankly, Hank, you never contributed anything to Rebecca's success. She built her own life, earned her own money, inherited her own house. This house. Yes, this house, Rebecca inherited it from Dorothy, and now I inherit it from Rebecca. That's how inheritance works. I nodded slowly. I see. Good. Finally, Tony, what? You might want to check your facts before making statements like that in front of witnesses. He laughed, but it sounded forced. What facts, Hank? I work in marketing. I know how to research property ownership. Do you? Better than you do, apparently. I looked at the 3 people by the door. They were witnessing something they definitely hadn't signed up for. Folks, I said, you might want to ask Tony to show you the deed to this house before you start planning renovations. Tony's face went white. Hank, don't what? Don't tell the truth, but I'd said enough. Sometimes the best revenge is letting people hang themselves with their own words. Enjoy your tour, I said, and headed for the front door. I had a lawyer to call. The ride to church gave me time to think. St. Mark's Lutheran on Brook Park Road had been our family church for 30 years. Dorothy and I had gotten married there. Rebecca had been baptized there, confirmed there. We'd held Dorothy's funeral service there just 3 years ago. Pastor Williams was a good man, probably my age, who'd seen enough family drama over the years to understand that grief makes people do strange things. After the service, he asked how I was holding up. Tony's making some assumptions about my finances, I told him. Thinks I'm destitute. Pastor Williams nodded slowly. Grief affects people differently. Sometimes it brings out the worst in family members. Sometimes it reveals who people really are. That too. You need to talk to someone about it. I've got a lawyer. Good. But if you need someone to listen, you know where to find me. Monday morning, I sat in attorney Linda Rodriguez's office with 3 manila folders on the mahogany desk between us. Linda had been handling my legal affairs for 15 years, ever since she'd helped me set up the family trust. She was sharp, thorough, and had 0 patience for nonsense. Hank, she said, adjusting her reading glasses, I have to ask, are you sure you want to do this? I'm sure. Because once we start this process, there's no taking it back. Tony will know everything. Good. Linda opened the first folder. Let's review what we have. The original deed to 447 Maple Street lay on top. Harold Preston, sole owner, recorded April 15, 1989. No co-signers, Linda noted. No joint ownership, no mortgage. You paid cash for the land and construction. Correct. She opened the second folder. Property tax records for 33 years. All paid by you from your accounts. Correct? Insurance policies, utility bills, maintenance contracts, all in your name. Correct. She opened the third folder, and this is the big one. The Harold and Dorothy Preston Family Trust. The trust documents were thick, complex, full of legal language that had taken months to develop and decades to fund properly. Current balance, Linda asked, though she already knew, $925,487 as of last Friday. And Rebecca's status in the trust, beneficiary during her lifetime. Never a trustee, never an owner. Linda leaned back in her leather chair. Hank, this is a substantial estate. Tony had no idea, none, and Rebecca never told him about the trust structure. Rebecca was a good daughter, but she wasn't detail-oriented about finances. She knew I helped her when she needed help. She probably never thought to explain where the money came from. So Tony assumed that Rebecca was supporting you instead of the other way around. Linda shook her head. It's understandable, I suppose. Young couples don't usually have trust this size backing them up. The irony is beautiful, I said. Tony's been planning to spend my own money while calling me a burden. How so? Rebecca's life insurance. $75,000. He's been making plans with that money for 2 months, but the beneficiary is the trust, which means the beneficiary is me. Linda pulled out a calculator, so let me make sure I understand. Tony thinks he inherited a $385,000 house and $75,000 in life insurance. That's right, but actually he inherited nothing. The house belongs to you and the insurance money goes to your trust. That's right. And he's been treating you like a charity case while planning to spend nearly $460,000 that was never his. That's right. Linda was quiet for a moment, processing the situation. Hank, I have to ask, why did you let this go on for 2 months? Why didn't you correct his assumptions immediately? I thought about that Sunday morning scene, Tony calling me a burden in front of strangers, the casual cruelty of it, the complete confidence in his own righteousness, because I wanted to see how far he'd go, and he went pretty far. Linda nodded. What do you want to do now? I want to establish clear boundaries. Legal boundaries, all kinds of boundaries. She pulled out a legal pad. Talk to me. First, I want the insurance claim processed immediately. The money belongs to the trust, not to Tony. Done. That's straightforward. Second, I want Tony served with formal notice that he's a tenant in my house, not an owner. Also straightforward. How much notice? 30 days. But I want it delivered December 15th, the same date he planned to change my locks. Linda smiled slightly. Poetic justice. Third, I want him to understand exactly what Rebecca's relationship to the trust was, so he can't claim ignorance going forward. We can provide complete documentation. And fourth, I paused. I want witnesses present when we have this conversation. Witnesses, the same marketing people who heard him call me a burden yesterday. They should hear the truth, too. Linda set down her pen. Hank, that feels like public humiliation. No, public humiliation is what Tony did to me. This is public education. There's a difference. Tony humiliated me to make himself feel powerful. I'm educating people to prevent future misunderstandings. Linda considered this. The marketing people aren't necessary for the legal process, but they're necessary for the social process. Explained. Tony spent 2 months telling people that I'm a broke old man living off family charity. Those people deserve to know the truth, and Tony deserves to hear that truth in front of the same people he lied to. Exactly. Linda made notes on her legal pad. When do you want to do this? December 15th. Give Tony exactly the timeline he gave me, and if he refuses to meet, then we serve the papers without explanation and let him figure it out. Linda pulled out her calendar. I can have everything ready by 10 a.m. on December 15th. Perfect. Where do you want to meet? Tony's office, where his colleagues can see what respect looks like. Linda looked up from her calendar. Hank, I've been practicing law for 25 years. I've seen a lot of family disputes. This isn't about the money, is it? No, it's about the disrespect. It's about boundaries. Tony needs to learn that you can't treat people badly just because you think they're powerless. And if he'd been respectful from the beginning, then we'd be having a different conversation. I would have explained the situation privately and helped him transition to independence, but he wasn't respectful. He was cruel. There's a difference between grief and cruelty. Linda closed the folders. I'll make the calls this afternoon. Thank you, Hank. Yes, for what it's worth, I think Rebecca would be proud of how you're handling this. I stood up and shook her hand. Rebecca taught me something important. What's that? That quiet strength beats loud ignorance every time. She was a smart girl. She learned from the best teacher, Dorothy, no life. Life taught her that respect is earned, not inherited. As I left the law office, I thought about Tony's timeline. He'd given me until December 15th to move out. He was about to learn that some deadlines cut both ways, and some assumptions cost more than you can afford to pay. The next 2 weeks passed in a strange kind of peace. Tony gave me space to process my new reality, which was generous of him. He even stopped by a couple times to check on me, playing the role of dutiful son-in-law to perfection. How's the apartment hunting going? He asked one afternoon, finding me in the workshop organizing tools. It's going, I said. Good. I know this is hard, but you'll be happier somewhere more manageable. Less upkeep, built-in social activities. Sunset Manor really does have a good reputation. I nodded and continued sorting screws into their proper compartments. Tony watched me work for a minute, probably calculating the resale value of my equipment. What are you going to do with all this stuff? He asked, gesturing at the workshop. Haven't decided yet, because I know a guy who deals in used tools. He could probably give you a fair price for everything. A fair price, from Tony's guy. I'm sure that would work out great for me. I'll keep that in mind, I said. Tony seemed encouraged by my cooperative attitude. You know, Hank, I think this is really going to be good for both of us. You'll have less to worry about, and I'll be able to give this place the attention it deserves. The attention it deserves. Like 33 years of my attention hadn't been enough. Meanwhile, Linda was busy behind the scenes. She filed the insurance claim on November 30th. The insurance company, having no reason to question a straightforward beneficiary claim supported by proper documentation, cut the check within a week. $75,000 deposited directly into the trust account that Tony didn't know existed. She also prepared the formal eviction notice, though in legal terms, it was more of a notice to quit since Tony had never been a proper tenant. The document was a thing of beauty, clear, professional, and absolutely devastating to anyone who'd been operating under false assumptions about property ownership. But the masterpiece was the complete trust documentation package. Linda had assembled every relevant paper into a comprehensive file that told the story of the Preston family finances from 1987 to the present. Bank statements, investment records, property documents, business licenses, tax returns. A complete financial biography that painted a very different picture from the one Tony had been telling himself. December 14th, the night before the confrontation, I couldn't sleep. Not from nervousness, but from anticipation. It had been almost 3 months since Rebecca's funeral. 3 months of watching Tony strut around my house like he owned it. 3 months of listening to him tell people I was dependent on family charity. 3 months of biting my tongue while he made plans for my money. Tomorrow, the truth would finally come out. I spent the evening in the workshop, not working on anything specific, just enjoying the space, the pegboard tool organization that had taken me 3 years to perfect. The workbench Dorothy had surprised me with for my 45th birthday. The wood stove that kept the space comfortable even in Cleveland winters. Tony thought he was going to sell all of this to some used tool dealer. Probably figured he'd get a couple $1,000s for equipment that had cost me $15,000 over the years. The table saw alone was worth more than he probably imagined. But it wasn't about the money. It was about the respect, about understanding that some things can't be bought or sold or inherited. They have to be earned. Around midnight, I locked up the workshop and headed upstairs. In the kitchen, I made myself a cup of tea and sat at the table where this whole thing had started. The same table where Tony had spread out his legal pad and calculated my supposed expenses. The same table where he'd laid out his timeline for my eviction. Tomorrow, we'd be sitting at a different table, in a different building, with different documents and very different assumptions about who held the power. December 15th arrived gray and cold. Typical Cleveland winter weather. The kind of morning that makes you appreciate central heating and a good cup of coffee. I was up at 5:30, same as always, old habits from 35 years of construction work when you had to beat the traffic to get to job sites on time. At 9:45 a.m., Linda Rodriguez and I walked into Dynamic Marketing Solutions on Euclid Avenue. The office was one of those modern open-concept spaces with exposed brick walls and industrial lighting, very trendy, very expensive, very Tony. The receptionist directed us to Tony's desk in the corner. He was hunched over his computer, probably working on some campaign that would convince people they needed things they'd never thought about before. Marketing magic. He looked up when we approached, and his face went through a series of expressions like a slot machine settling on a losing combination. Professional smile, confusion, recognition, alarm. "Hank, what are you doing here? We need to talk," I said calmly. Now, around the office, other marketing executives were pretending to work while clearly listening. Tony's life was about to become office entertainment. "I'm at work," he said, glancing around nervously. "Can this wait until tonight?" "No," Linda said, stepping forward. "I'm Linda Rodriguez, attorney at law. We need to discuss some urgent legal matters regarding your late wife's estate." The words attorney and legal matters had an immediate effect. Conversations slowed throughout the office. Computer keyboards went quiet. This was better than cable TV. Tony's face went pale. "Is everything okay?" "That depends on your definition of okay," Linda replied, setting her briefcase on his desk. "Mr. Castellano," she continued, "we need to clarify some misconceptions about property ownership and inheritance rights." "What misconceptions?" Tony asked, but his voice had lost its usual confidence. "Well, for starters, the house at 447 Maple Street that you've been claiming as your inheritance. What about it?" Linda opened her briefcase and pulled out the first folder. "You don't own it." The words dropped into the office space like a sledgehammer through plate glass. Every conversation stopped. Every head turned toward Tony's desk. "What do you mean I don't own it?" Tony asked. "I mean exactly what I said. You don't own 447 Maple Street. You never owned it. Rebecca never owned it. The sole owner since 1989 has been Harold Preston." She pulled out the deed and placed it on Tony's desk. Original deed, recorded April 15th, 1989. Harold Preston, cash purchase, no cosigners, no mortgage. Tony snatched the paper and read it, his face going from pale to white to something approaching green. "This has to be wrong," he said. "Rebecca inherited this house when Dorothy died." "Dorothy Preston owned no property," Linda said. "Everything was purchased by Harold Preston before their marriage. But Rebecca lived there her whole life as Harold's daughter in Harold's house." By now, the entire office was openly staring. The blonde woman from the Sunday tour, Jessica, was standing near the coffee machine with her mouth slightly open. Two other marketing executives had actually moved closer to get a better view. "I don't understand," Tony said. "Rebecca had money, good money. She paid bills, helped with expenses. Rebecca was comfortable because Harold made sure she was comfortable," Linda said, pulling out another folder. "What does that mean?" "It means Harold was supporting Rebecca, not the other way around." Linda spread property tax receipts across Tony's desk like playing cards. 33 years of property taxes, all paid by Harold Preston, insurance policies, utility bills, maintenance contracts, all Harold Preston. Tony stared at the papers like they were written in hieroglyphics. "This doesn't make sense. Rebecca told me she was helping Hank financially. Rebecca helped Harold with groceries and appointments," Linda said. "Harold helped Rebecca with everything else." "What everything else?" Linda pulled out the third folder, the big one. The Harold and Dorothy Preston Family Trust. Current balance, $925,487. The office was completely silent now. Even the phones seemed to have stopped ringing. Rebecca was a beneficiary of this trust during her lifetime. Linda continued. "Harold provided financial support for Rebecca's education, her wedding, her various needs. All the money you thought came from Rebecca's nursing salary actually came from Harold's trust." Tony sank into his desk chair like he'd been deflated. "You're saying Hank was supporting Rebecca? I'm saying Harold was supporting his daughter from his own considerable resources." "But the life insurance," Tony said suddenly, grasping for something solid. "Rebecca's life insurance. That's mine." Linda pulled out another paper. "The beneficiary of Rebecca's life insurance policy is the Harold and Dorothy Preston Family Trust." "No." "Yes. That money is mine. That money belongs to Harold." Tony looked around the office. Every marketing executive was staring at him. The man who'd been so confident about his inheritance, so dismissive of the old man's financial situation, so certain of his right to kick me out of my own house. "Hank," he said, his voice small now, "I didn't know. You didn't ask. You could have told me. You could have asked respectfully." Linda closed the folders. "Mr. Castellano, you have 30 days to find alternative housing arrangements." 30 days, the same timeline you gave Harold. "But where will I go?" "That's not Harold's concern anymore," Linda said. "You're a capable adult with a career. I'm sure you'll figure something out." Tony looked at me with something I'd never seen from him before, respect mixed with fear. "Hank, I'm sorry. I made assumptions." "Yes, you did. Can we work something out?" Some kind of arrangement, I considered the question. Around us, the marketing office was perfectly quiet. Dozens of witnesses to what happened when assumptions met reality. Tony, respect isn't negotiable. It never was. I understand that now. Do you? Yes. Good. That's the first step toward earning it back. Linda and I headed for the door. The entire marketing office watched us leave like we were celebrities departing a red carpet event. Hank, Tony called after me. I turned back. What happens now? Now you learn what I've always known. What's that? That quiet people aren't weak people. We're just selective about when we use our voices. And with that, we left. The silence behind us spoke volumes. The drive back to my house was quiet. Linda handled the legal details while I processed what had just happened. 3 months of assumptions had been demolished in about 10 minutes. 3 months of Tony's confidence had evaporated in front of his colleagues. How do you feel? Linda asked as we pulled into my driveway, relieved, I said. Like I can finally breathe again. Any regrets about doing it publicly? I thought about that. No. Tony chose to humiliate me in front of people. He needed to learn the truth the same way. Fair enough. What's next? Next, I clean up the mess and move forward. Linda gathered her files from the back seat. Hank, you know Tony's gonna struggle with this. Losing Rebecca was hard enough. Now losing everything he thought came with her. That's not my problem anymore, I know. I'm just saying, if he approaches you respectfully, you might consider showing some mercy. If he approaches me respectfully, I agreed. Big if. That afternoon, I sat in my workshop surrounded by 35 years of accumulated tools and equipment. Everything Tony had planned to sell to his used tool dealer. Everything he'd calculated into his inheritance assumptions. The irony wasn't lost on me. For months, I'd been watching Tony make plans with my money while calling me a financial burden. Now he was the one facing uncertainty while I sat surrounded by assets he'd never known existed. My phone rang around 4 o'clock, Carol Murphy from next door. Hank, I just heard the most interesting story from my sister. She works downtown, and apparently there was quite a scene at some marketing office today. News travels fast in Cleveland. Is that right? Something about property ownership and family trusts? You wouldn't know anything about that, would you? I smiled. I might know a little something. Good for you, Hank. That boy needed to learn some manners. By evening, the story had spread through the neighborhood. Helen Davis from across the street called around 7. Hank, people are saying Tony didn't actually inherit your house. People are saying a lot of things, Helen. Well, I always thought it was strange. I remember when you built that place, you did most of the work yourself. Some of it more than some. I used to watch you out there every weekend, measuring and cutting and hammering. Rebecca was just a baby then. The memories felt both distant and immediate. Rebecca in her high chair on the back porch watching me frame the addition, Dorothy bringing me sandwiches and iced tea during lunch breaks. The satisfaction of building something with your own hands that would outlast you. Around 9 o'clock, there was a knock at my door. I expected another neighbor with questions, but it was Tony. He looked like he'd aged 5 years since morning. His expensive clothes were wrinkled, his usually perfect hair was disheveled, and his confidence was nowhere to be found. Can we talk? He asked. I let him in. We sat in the living room I'd built, in chairs I'd bought, surrounded by memories he'd planned to erase. I owe you an apology, he said. A real one this time, okay. I was wrong about everything. Your finances, your situation, your relationship with Rebecca. I made assumptions and I was cruel about it. Yes, you were. I called you a burden. He was looking at his hands now in front of strangers, at Rebecca's funeral reception. That was unforgivable. It was hurtful. It was more than hurtful. It was wrong. You built this family's wealth. You supported Rebecca her entire life. You gave her opportunities I never could have provided. And I repaid that generosity by trying to steal your house and calling you names. I waited. Tony was processing something, and interrupting wouldn't help. I've been thinking all day, he continued, about why I did it, why I was so quick to assume you were the dependent one, and because it fit the story I wanted to tell myself, that Rebecca chose me because I could provide for her, that I was the successful one in the relationship, that I was taking care of her family instead of the other way around. It was the first honest thing he'd said since Rebecca's funeral. But the truth is, Tony continued, Rebecca didn't need me to provide for her. She already had everything she needed. What she saw in me wasn't financial security. I don't know what it was. She saw potential, I said. Rebecca always believed people could grow into better versions of themselves, and I let her down. You let yourself down. Rebecca's not here to be disappointed. We sat in silence for a while. The clock on the mantel ticked away the minutes. Dorothy had bought that clock at an estate sale in 1995. It had been keeping perfect time ever since. Hank, I know I don't have the right to ask, but is there any way we can work something out? Some arrangement where I can stay until I figure out what's next. What did you have in mind? I could pay rent. Market rate. First and last month up front, I considered this. How much do you think market rate is for a 2,800 square foot house in this neighborhood? I don't know, maybe $2,200 a month. Try $2,800 plus utilities, plus a security deposit. Tony's face fell. I can't afford that. Then you need to find somewhere you can afford. I understand, Tony said. I guess I was hoping for some kind of family discount. Family earns discounts through respect and consideration. You spent 3 months planning to kick me out of my own house. You're right, I have no right to ask for favors. He stood up to leave, then turned back. Hank, can I ask you something? Sure. Why didn't you tell me about the trust from the beginning? When Rebecca and I got married, or when Dorothy died, or any time in the past 6 years, it was a fair question, because it wasn't your business. Rebecca was my beneficiary, not you. The trust was family business, not marriage business, but if I'd known, none of this would have happened. If you'd been respectful, none of this would have happened. The problem wasn't your lack of information. The problem was your assumptions. Tony nodded slowly. You're saying even if I'd known you were wealthy, I still might have treated you badly. I'm saying wealth doesn't earn respect. Character does. And I showed poor character. You showed who you really are when you think nobody can stop you. The next morning, Thursday, brought an interesting phone call. Jessica, the blonde marketing executive from Sunday's house tour. Mr. Preston, this is Jessica Williams from Dynamic Marketing. We met at your house last weekend. I remember. I hope you don't mind me calling. I got your number from information. I wanted to apologize for being part of that whole scene. We had no idea we were walking into a family dispute. Not your fault. Tony invited you. Still, I feel terrible about it. The things he said about you, calling you a burden and all that, it was awful. It was honest. Sometimes people show you who they really are. Well, for what it's worth, everyone at the office is talking about what happened yesterday. Tony's reputation has taken a real hit. How so? If he can't figure out who owns a house he's been living in for 6 years, how can clients trust him with their marketing campaigns? That's what people are saying. I hadn't considered that angle. Has it affected his job? Let's just say his next performance review is going to be interesting. After Jessica hung up, I thought about unintended consequences. I'd wanted to teach Tony a lesson about respect, but I hadn't meant to damage his career. Then again, character failures in personal life often translate to professional problems. That's not revenge, that's just reality. Friday brought a visit from George Patterson, an old friend of Rebecca's from nursing school. George was a good kid, maybe 35 years old, who'd stayed close to Rebecca throughout her illness. Mr. Preston, I hope you don't mind me stopping by. I heard about what happened with Tony News, travels fast. Rebecca talked about you a lot during chemo. She was always worried about you being alone in this big house. She was a good daughter. She said you taught her about hard work and responsibility, about not taking things for granted. George looked around the living room. She also said you built this whole place yourself. With some help, she was proud of that. She used to tell the other nurses that her dad could fix anything, build anything. It meant something to hear that. During Rebecca's illness, our conversations had focused on treatments and appointments and managing her pain. We hadn't talked much about pride or accomplishments or family history. George, can I ask you something? Sure. Did Rebecca ever talk about money? About supporting me or Tony supporting me? George looked confused. Supporting you, Mr. Preston? Rebecca talked about how generous you were, how you helped pay for her wedding, helped with her student loans, always made sure she had what she needed. She never mentioned supporting me financially. No, sir. The opposite. She said she was grateful she never had to worry about money because you'd always taken care of everything. So Tony's assumptions hadn't come from Rebecca. They'd come from his own need to see himself as the family provider. The weekend passed quietly. Tony came by Saturday morning to start packing his belongings. He was methodical about it, careful not to take anything that hadn't clearly belonged to Rebecca. I appreciated that level of respect, even if it was a little late. Where are you planning to go? I asked while he loaded boxes into his car. My brother's got a spare room in Columbus. I can stay there while I figure things out. That's good. Family helps family. Yeah, Tom always said I could crash there if I needed to. I never thought I'd need to. Life's full of surprises. Mr. Preston, Tony was loading Rebecca's nursing textbooks. I know you probably don't want to hear this, but Rebecca really did love you. She talked about you all the time. I know she did. And she would have wanted us to get along better. She tried to make that happen. We both let her down, maybe. But she'd want us to do better going forward, maybe. Sunday morning, I went to church alone for the first time since Rebecca's funeral. Pastor Williams asked how I was doing during coffee hour. Better, I said. Things are settling down, and Tony learning some hard lessons about assumptions. That's good. Everyone needs to learn those lessons at some point. Some people learn them harder than others. That's often their choice, not ours. Pastor Williams was right. Tony had chosen to make assumptions rather than ask questions. He'd chosen to be cruel rather than kind. He'd chosen to humiliate rather than respect. The consequences of those choices weren't my responsibility, but I'd also made choices. I'd chosen to let him dig himself deeper rather than correct his assumptions early. I'd chosen public confrontation rather than private education. I'd chosen legal warfare rather than family conversation. Were my choices right? Were they kind? Were they what Rebecca would have wanted? I thought about that question all week. By the following Friday, Tony had moved out completely. The house felt different without him, quieter, but somehow more settled, like the walls could finally relax. He'd left a note on the kitchen table. Thank you for the roof over my head for the past 3 months. I know I didn't deserve your patience. I hope someday I can earn your forgiveness. Tony, it was a better apology than his first attempts. More honest, less self-serving. Maybe Columbus would be good for him. Maybe some distance from Cleveland would help him figure out who he wanted to be without Rebecca. The house felt bigger with just me in it again. 2,800 square feet is a lot of space for one person. But it was my space filled with my memories, organized according to my preferences. No more walking on eggshells, no more watching someone else make plans for my property. On Saturday morning, I got an unexpected visitor. Nancy Williams, the third marketing executive from that Sunday tour. She was standing on my front porch with a plate of homemade cookies and an embarrassed expression. Mr. Preston, I hope you don't mind me stopping by. I felt terrible about that whole scene at your house. Come in. She followed me to the kitchen. I brought cookies. My grandmother's recipe, it's not much, but I wanted to apologize properly. You don't need to apologize. You didn't do anything wrong. I feel like I did. I was part of that whole group treating you badly, making assumptions about your situation. Tony was making the assumptions. You were just following his lead. That's no excuse. I should have known better. Nancy looked around the kitchen with new eyes. This is beautiful craftsmanship. You really built this yourself. Most of it had help with the electrical and plumbing. Tony said it was outdated, but it's not. It's classic, solid, the kind of work you don't see anymore, thank you. Mr. Preston, can I ask you something? How did you keep your temper during all that? If someone had talked to me the way Tony talked to you, I would have exploded. I thought about that experience, I guess. 35 years of dealing with difficult customers teaches you patience. But he wasn't just a difficult customer, he was family. Sometimes family is the most difficult customer of all. Nancy laughed. That's true. My brother-in-law thinks he knows everything about everything. Drives me crazy. The difference is you probably don't live with your brother-in-law. God, no, I'd murder him. We talked for another hour. Nancy was good company, probably Rebecca's age, with none of Tony's need to dominate every conversation. She asked thoughtful questions about the house construction, about Rebecca's childhood, about my business. She listened to the answers instead of waiting for her turn to talk. Before she left, she said something that stuck with me. Mr. Preston, I don't know if this helps, but everyone at the office has been talking about what happened. Not in a gossipy way, but in a respectful way. Like, here's a man who built something real and defended it when someone tried to take it away. I'm not sure I was defending anything. Maybe just standing up for what was right. Same thing, isn't it? After she left, I spent the afternoon in the workshop. Not building anything specific, just enjoying the space. The late December light filtered through the basement windows, highlighting dust motes floating in the air. Everything was exactly where I'd left it. Every tool in its place, every project organized and ready. Tony's friend, the used tool dealer, would have bought all of this for maybe $3,000. He would have loaded it into a truck and resold it piece by piece to other contractors who wouldn't know the history of each instrument. The table saw Dorothy surprised me with. The router set Rebecca helped me choose for her high school woodworking project. The hand planes my father had given me when I first started in construction. Some things aren't for sale no matter what the market thinks they're worth. Sunday after church, I drove out to Riverside Cemetery. Dorothy's grave looked peaceful under its blanket of December snow. Rebecca's marker was still so new it seemed to stand at attention among the weathered stones. Well, I told them both Tony's gone, moved to Columbus, says he's sorry. The wind moved through the bare trees, making that winter sound that's part whistle, part moan. I probably could have handled it differently. Been gentler about the whole thing, but he needed to learn that respect isn't optional. A cardinal landed on Dorothy's headstone, bright red against the gray granite. Dorothy had always loved cardinals, God's reminders, she used to call them, little flashes of beauty in the middle of ordinary days. Rebecca would have wanted us to get along, I continued. She always tried to keep peace between Tony and me. Maybe I should have tried harder. The cardinal cocked its head like it was listening, then flew off toward the oak trees at the edge of the cemetery. But respect is a two-way street. I gave Tony 6 years to learn how to treat people properly. He chose not to learn. Walking back to the truck, I thought about forgiveness versus accountability. I could forgive Tony for his assumptions and his cruelty. Forgiveness was good for my own peace of mind. But forgiveness didn't mean pretending nothing had happened. It didn't mean ignoring the lessons that needed to be learned. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone is let them face the consequences of their choices. Sometimes that's the only way they learn to make better choices in the future. Monday brought a phone call that surprised me. Linda Rodriguez with news about the insurance money. The check cleared, she said. All $75,000 is now in the trust account. Good, Hank, I have to ask. What are you planning to do with it? I'd been thinking about that. Rebecca always wanted to go back to school, get her master's degree in nursing education. Maybe I'll set up a scholarship in her name. That's a beautiful idea. She used to talk about teaching other nurses. Said there was too much knowledge walking out the door when experienced people retired. Where were you thinking? Her nursing school? Probably. I'll need to talk to them about how to set it up properly. I can help with that. Educational funds have specific legal requirements. After Linda hung up, I sat in my kitchen thinking about legacy. What do you leave behind when you're gone? What matters in the long run? For Dorothy, it had been the family she'd raised and the home she'd created. Every room in this house had her fingerprints on it. Not just decorating choices, but the feeling of care that soaked into the walls over 30 years of marriage. For Rebecca, it would be the patients she'd helped and the colleagues she'd mentored. Even in her short career, she'd made a difference. The scholarship would extend that difference into the future. For me, maybe it was this house and the business I'd built, but maybe it was also the lesson about quiet strength versus loud assumptions, about earning respect instead of demanding it. Tuesday afternoon, Carol Murphy knocked on my door with a casserole and the latest neighborhood news. Hank, you'll never guess what happened. You remember the Hendersons 2 houses down? Their son-in-law has been living with them since their daughter passed last year. I remember, well, apparently he's been telling everyone he inherited their house too. But Helen Henderson called the county assessor's office yesterday to check the property records. And same story as yours. The son-in-law doesn't own anything. Helen and Ralph own the house, always have. They're meeting with a lawyer tomorrow. Interesting. Helen said your situation gave her the courage to check, said she'd been wondering about some of the things he'd been saying. News of my confrontation with Tony was apparently inspiring other people to verify their own assumptions. Sometimes one person standing up to disrespect gives others permission to do the same. Wednesday evening brought an unexpected visitor. A young man in a delivery uniform with a package from Tony. Inside was Rebecca's jewelry box, the one I had made for her 16th birthday. Carved walnut with a music box mechanism that played Amazing Grace. I'd spent 3 months on that project, working in the evenings after long days on construction sites. There was also a letter. Mr. Preston, I found this while packing. I realized I'd been keeping something that never belonged to me. Rebecca always said her father made this for her, that it was her most treasured possession. I'm sorry it took me so long to return it. I hope someday we can talk again under better circumstances. Tony, the jewelry box, still worked perfectly. The little ballerina still spun to the music, though the tune was slower than I remembered. Inside were Rebecca's nursing school pin, the earrings Dorothy had given her for her wedding, and a folded piece of paper. The paper was a note in Rebecca's handwriting. To whoever finds this after I'm gone, my dad built this jewelry box for me when I was 16. It took him 3 months of evenings in his workshop. He'd work on it after dinner, sanding and carving and fitting the pieces together. I used to sneak downstairs to watch him work. He never knew I was there, but I loved watching his hands create something beautiful just for me. This box represents everything I love about my father, his patience, his skill, his quiet way of showing love. Please take care of it. Rebecca, I had to sit down for a minute. Rebecca had been watching me work on her gift, and I'd never known. She'd understood, even at 16, what that jewelry box represented. Not just woodworking, but love made tangible. The note was dated just 2 months before she died. She'd been planning for her absence, making sure important things were understood and preserved. Thursday morning, I called the nursing school where Rebecca had earned her degree. The dean remembered her fondly. Rebecca was special, she said. She had this way of connecting with patients that you can't teach. Some nurses have technical skills, some have compassion, but Rebecca had both. I'd like to discuss setting up a scholarship in her memory. We'd be honored. What did you have in mind? Something for students who want to go into nursing education. Rebecca always said the profession needed more good teachers. She was right about that. How much were you thinking? $75,000 to start. Enough to provide meaningful assistance for several students, Mr. Preston. That's incredibly generous. Are you sure? I'm sure. Rebecca would have used that money to help other nurses. This way, she still can. We spent an hour on the phone working out details. The scholarship would be awarded annually to a nursing student with at least 2 years of experience who wanted to pursue education credentials. Recipients would be chosen based on clinical excellence and teaching potential. We'll call it the Rebecca Preston Nursing Education Scholarship, the dean said. We can have the first award ready for next fall's semester. Perfect. After hanging up, I felt something I hadn't experienced since Rebecca's funeral. Peace. Not the absence of pain, but the presence of purpose. Rebecca's death had meaning beyond loss. Her memory would live on in ways Tony's inheritance plans never could have achieved. Friday brought another surprise, a call from Tony's supervisor at Dynamic Marketing Solutions. Mr. Preston, this is David Chen, Tony Castellano's manager. I hope you don't mind me calling. Not at all. I wanted to apologize for what happened in our office last week. That kind of personal drama has no place in a professional environment. Tony was dealing with some difficult family issues. Yes, well, we've had some conversations about professional conduct and appropriate workplace behavior, but that's not why I'm calling. Oh, I'm calling because several people in the office have been talking about your house. The craftsmanship, the attention to detail. We're looking for someone to do some renovation work on our conference room and your name came up. I almost laughed. Mr. Chin, I'm retired, I understand. But would you be willing to take a look? Maybe recommend someone you trust? I could do that. Excellent. When would be convenient? We arranged for me to visit the following Monday. It felt strange, being asked for professional advice by the same people who'd witnessed Tony's public humiliation. But business is business, and good craftsmanship has its own reputation. Saturday morning, I was working in the shop when George Patterson stopped by again. Mr. Preston, I hope you don't mind another visit. I was thinking about something. What's that? Rebecca used to talk about wanting to organize some kind of support group for families dealing with cancer. She said the patients got lots of attention, but the families were kind of forgotten. She mentioned that to me too. I work at the hospital now, and we've been talking about starting exactly that kind of program. I wondered if you might be interested in helping. The idea appealed to me. What kind of help? Well, you've been through it, you know what families need. And frankly, we could use someone with business experience to help organize things. I'm not much for group therapy, nothing like that. More like practical support. How to deal with insurance companies, how to organize care schedules, how to maintain hope when things look dark. That I could do great. There's a planning meeting next Thursday evening at the hospital. Just a small group of staff and a few family members who've been through it. After George left, I thought about Rebecca's unfinished plans. She'd always been a problem solver, someone who saw needs and figured out how to meet them. The scholarship would help future nurses. The support group would help current families. Both were extensions of her caring nature. Sunday after church, Pastor Williams asked if I'd consider joining the church council. We need someone with business experience, he said. Someone who understands financial management and facility maintenance. I'm not much of a committee person, neither was Rebecca, but she served for 3 years. Said her father had taught her about responsibility to community. She said that more than once. She was proud of your example. Monday morning, I drove downtown to Dynamic Marketing Solutions. The office looked different in daylight, less trendy and more like a place where people actually worked. David Chen was professional and courteous, making no reference to the previous week's drama. He showed me through the conference room they wanted to renovate. The space is fine, I told him, but the finishes need updating. This paneling is cheap veneer over particle board. You want something that projects quality and permanence. What would you recommend? Solid hardwood wainscoting, maybe oak or maple. Real wood that will last decades and improve with age. Do you know someone who could do that kind of work? I thought about my workshop, about tools that hadn't been used in months, about skills that were atrophying from lack of practice. Let me make some calls, I said. But driving home, I realized I didn't want to make calls. I wanted to do the work myself, not because I needed the money, but because I missed creating things. I missed the satisfaction of measuring twice and cutting once, of fitting joints perfectly, of seeing raw materials transform into something beautiful and functional. That evening, I called David Chen back. Mr. Chen, I've reconsidered. I'd like to do the work myself. Are you sure? It's a big project, I'm sure, but I work at my own pace, and I don't compromise on quality. That's exactly what we want. Tuesday, I spent the morning in the workshop inventorying tools and planning the project. It felt good to think about lumber specifications and finish schedules instead of family drama and legal documents. Carol Murphy stopped by around noon with lunch and curiosity. Hank, I heard you're coming out of retirement. Just one project. Something to keep my hands busy. That's good. Dorothy always said you were happiest when you were building something. She was right about that. You know, people are still talking about what happened with Tony. But now they're talking about other things too. About the scholarship you're setting up, about joining the church council. News travels fast. In a good way, people respect what you did. Standing up for yourself, but then doing something positive with the outcome. I'm just trying to honor Rebecca's memory. You're doing more than that. You're showing people how to handle difficult situations with dignity. Wednesday evening, I attended the first family support group planning meeting. 6 people around a conference table at the hospital, sharing ideas about how to help families navigate cancer treatment. The conversation was practical and focused. How to coordinate meal deliveries, how to manage insurance paperwork, how to support siblings and children when a parent is sick, how to maintain normal routines during abnormal times. These are all things Rebecca worried about, I told the group. She saw families falling apart because they didn't have practical support. What kind of support helped you? Asked Sarah, a social worker who was coordinating the program. Honestly, having neighbors who understood that grief doesn't follow schedules. People who brought food without being asked. Who offered help without making it feel like charity. That's exactly what we're trying to create, Sarah said. A network of practical support that doesn't feel like charity. The other thing I added is understanding that different people grieve differently. Tony grieved by trying to control everything. I grieved by getting quiet. Neither way was wrong, but they didn't mesh well together. How do we help families navigate those differences? Asked another member. Honest communication, clear expectations, and recognizing that stress makes people act in ways they normally wouldn't. The meeting lasted 2 hours. By the end, we had a preliminary structure for the support program and a timeline for implementation. I agreed to help with the administrative side, drawing on my business experience to create systems that would work long-term. Driving home, I thought about purpose. For months after Rebecca's death, I'd felt adrift, going through the motions of daily life without much reason beyond habit. The conflict with Tony had given me something to focus on, but it was negative energy, fighting against something rather than building towards something. Now I had positive projects, the scholarship, the support group, the renovation work, possibly the church council, ways to use my experience and resources to create something lasting. Ways to honor Rebecca's memory through action, rather than just sentiment. Thursday morning brought a call from Tony. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won out. Mr. Preston, I hope you don't mind me calling. What do you need, Tony? I wanted you to know I talked to my supervisor about what happened in the office, about the personal drama and inappropriate workplace behavior, okay? I took full responsibility, told him it was my fault for bringing family business to work and creating a scene in front of clients. That was the right thing to do. I also wanted you to know I'm in counseling, grief counseling, but also just regular counseling. I'm trying to figure out why I handled everything so badly. That's good, Tony. I've been thinking about what you said, about respect being earned, not inherited. You're right, I never earned Rebecca's respect. I just assumed it came with the marriage. Rebecca loved you. That's different from respect, but it's not nothing, I know. And I threw it away by treating her father badly. I didn't disagree, Mr. Preston. I don't expect forgiveness. But I wanted you to know I'm trying to become the kind of person Rebecca thought I could be. After he hung up, I felt something unexpected. Hope for Tony's future. Not hope that we'd become friends, but hope that he'd learn from his mistakes and treat the next family with more respect. Friday, I started work on the dynamic marketing conference room, measuring walls, calculating lumber needs, planning the installation sequence. The familiar rhythm of professional work felt good. Problems with clear solutions, materials that behaved predictably, progress you could see and measure. Several of the marketing executives stopped by to watch me work. Not Tony, he was apparently avoiding the project area, but others who were curious about traditional craftsmanship. "How long will this take?" asked Jessica. "Good work takes time, probably 3 weeks if I work mornings." "Why just mornings?" "Because I'm 58, not 28. I don't need to prove anything by working 12-hour days anymore." "That makes sense. Plus, I've got other commitments." Family support group meeting tonight. Church council meeting Sunday afternoon. You're busier retired than most people are working. Different kind of busy, better kind. That evening support group meeting focused on practical resources, insurance navigation, meal coordination, childcare assistance. We were building a toolkit that families could use during crisis periods. "Mr. Preston," said Martha, whose husband was undergoing treatment, "this is exactly what we needed 6 months ago." "Where was this information when we were desperate for help?" "It didn't exist," I said. "That's why we're creating it now. Better late than never. Better now than never again." Saturday morning, I was installing wainscoting when David Shen stopped by to check on progress. "This is beautiful work," he said, running his hand along the oak paneling. "How long have you been doing this?" 35 years professionally. "Longer than that as a hobby. Would you be interested in more projects? We've got a client who's renovating their headquarters. Depends on the project. I'm selective about what I take on these days." "What makes you say yes to a project?" "Good materials, clear expectations, respectful clients." Pretty much the same criteria I use for everything else in life. Sunday's church council meeting was productive. We reviewed the annual budget, planned maintenance priorities, and discussed the building's long-term needs. Pastor Williams was right. They needed someone who understood both financial management and facility requirements. "Hank," said Ellen Morrison, the council chair, "would you be willing to chair the Buildings and Grounds Committee? What does that involve?" "Overseeing maintenance contracts, planning capital improvements, making sure our facilities support our ministry." "I can do that." After the meeting, Pastor Williams pulled me aside. "You seem different than you did a few months ago. More engaged, more purposeful. I feel different." "What changed?" "I stopped letting other people define my worth. Started focusing on what I can contribute instead of what I've lost." That's wisdom. That's survival. You can't live in the past, but you can honor it by building something better in the future. Speaking of building something better, how's the scholarship program coming along? First award goes out next fall. The family support group starts next month. The conference room renovation should be finished by Valentine's Day. Busy man, purposeful man, there's a difference. Monday evening, I attended my first church council meeting. 7 people around a table in the church basement discussing budgets and building maintenance with the seriousness of a corporate board meeting. "The sanctuary roof needs attention," said Martha Stevens, who'd been on the council for 20 years. "We're getting water damage on the east wall. How much are we talking?" Asked Frank Morrison, the treasurer, $15,000 for a complete replacement, $8,000 for repairs that might last another 5 years. "We don't have $15,000, Frank said flatly. I'd been listening for an hour, getting a feel for the group dynamics. Martha was the practical voice, Frank was the financial realist, and the others fell somewhere between optimism and worry. "What kind of roof is it?" I asked. "Asphalt shingles, installed in 2005, 18 years. That's about right for needing replacement, you know? Roofing?" asked Pastor Williams. "I've done a few over the years. Mind if I take a look this week? That would be helpful. I'll check the trusses and decking too." Sometimes what looks like a roofing problem is actually structural. After the meeting, Pastor Williams walked me to my truck. "Thanks for coming tonight. I think you'll be good for the council. Seems like a practical group." They are, sometimes too practical. We could use someone with vision along with the practical experience. What kind of vision? Well, for instance, we've talked for years about expanding our community outreach. But every time someone suggests a new program, Frank starts calculating costs, and the idea dies. Programs need funding. Frank's not wrong about that. No, but there's a difference between being fiscally responsible and being afraid to invest in anything meaningful. I thought about the scholarship fund, about the family support program. Sometimes the best investments couldn't be measured in quarterly returns. Tuesday morning brought the first day of actual construction work in months. I loaded my truck with tools and materials for the conference room project. It felt good to have a purpose beyond sitting around the house. The work went smoothly, measuring, cutting, fitting the first pieces of wainscoting. My hands remembered the motions, the feel of good tools doing precise work. By noon, I had the first wall section roughed in. David Chen stopped by around lunchtime. Looking good already, just getting started. The staff is excited about this. They've been watching through the glass, admiring the craftsmanship. It's basic millwork. Nothing fancy. Maybe to you, to us, it's magic. Most of us can barely hang a picture straight. During lunch break, I called the roofing supply company I'd worked with for years. Eddie Martinez had taken over the business from his father, and he still gave contractors honest prices and quality materials. Hank Preston, I thought you retired?
I did.
This is for the church. Need to price out a sanctuary roof replacement. What's the square footage? Haven't measured yet, but it's a traditional church building, maybe 2,000 square feet of roof surface, architectural shingles, or basic 3-tab. Depends on budget. Give me pricing for both. I'll email you specs and pricing this afternoon. Wednesday morning, I climbed onto the church roof with my tape measure and clipboard. The damage was worse than Martha had described. Several missing shingles, exposed decking that was starting to rot, flashing around the steeple that had failed completely. Pastor Williams met me in the parking lot when I came down. How bad is it? Bad enough you need a new roof, and you need it before spring rains start, 15,000. Closer to 18 with the decking repairs, but I might be able to help with that. How? Let me talk to some people. See what I can work out. Thursday evening was the second family support group planning meeting. We'd grown from 6 people to 12 as word spread through the hospital network. We need to talk about funding, Sarah said. These programs cost money to run properly. How much money? Asked Dr. Martinez. For the first year, maybe 25,000. Staff time, materials, training costs. The hospital foundation might help, suggested one of the nurses. They fund community programs. What about private donors? I asked. People who've been through cancer treatment and understand the value of family support. That's possible. Do you know potential donors? I thought about the trust fund, about Rebecca's insurance money that was already committed to the scholarship. But there were other resources, other ways to fund meaningful programs. I might know someone, I said. Friday afternoon, I had an idea that excited me more than it should have. What if the church roof project and the family support program could help each other? I called Pastor Williams. Are you free for coffee? I want to discuss something. We met at the diner on Brook Park Road, the same place Dorothy and I used to go for breakfast after church on Sundays. What's on your mind? Pastor Williams asked, the roof project. What if we could do it for cost of materials? How? Community volunteer day. Get church members involved in the actual work. Make it a fellowship project instead of just writing a check to contractors. Most of our congregation is over 60, Hank. Roofing is dangerous work, not the roofing itself, but there's plenty of groundwork. Hauling materials, cleaning up, organizing supplies, save thousands in labor costs. And you'd supervise the actual roofing. Me and a couple of guys I know who still do this kind of work. We donate our time, the church saves money, and people feel like they're contributing to something important. Pastor Williams stirred his coffee thoughtfully. That could work. When were you thinking early spring? March or April when the weather's stable, how much would that save? Maybe 10,000 in labor costs. Brings the project down to 8 or 9,000 for materials. That's manageable. And here's the other thing. What if we use this project to raise awareness about the family support program? People working together for the church, learning about other ways to help the community. You're thinking of this as a fundraiser? I'm thinking of it as community building. The money follows naturally when people understand the mission. Pastor Williams smiled. Rebecca would have loved this idea. Rebecca always said the best way to honor someone's memory is to keep their work alive. Saturday morning brought unexpected visitors. Nancy Williams and Jessica from the marketing office, both carrying coffee and looking nervous. Mr. Preston, we hope you don't mind us stopping by, Jessica said. We wanted to ask a favor. Come in. We gathered in the living room. Nancy was fidgeting with her coffee cup like a teenager asking someone to prom. We've been talking, Jessica said, and we wondered if you might consider doing some work for us. Private work, I mean, not through the company. What kind of work? Nancy's buying a house, Jessica explained, a fixer-upper in Lakewood. It needs pretty much everything. Kitchen, bathrooms, flooring. I'm not looking for charity, Nancy said quickly. I can pay fair wages. I just want someone I can trust, someone who does quality work. I thought about my calendar. The conference room project would be finished in a month. The church roof was scheduled for spring. I had time for another project. What's the timeline? Flexible. I'm not moving in until spring anyway. I'd rather have it done right than done fast. Can I take a look at it? Would you? That would be amazing. We spent the rest of the morning discussing Nancy's renovation plans. She had good instincts about design and realistic expectations about costs. The kind of customer every contractor hopes for. Driving home, I realized something had shifted over the past month. I wasn't just Harold Preston, retired contractor living alone in a house full of memories. I was becoming someone new. Community member, mentor, craftsman with purpose beyond personal profit. Rebecca and Dorothy would have approved of this version of myself. Sunday, after church, I made a decision that surprised even me. I asked Pastor Williams if I could address the congregation about the roof project. Of course. Any particular reason you want to speak publicly? People need to understand what we're asking of them. Community projects work when everyone knows their role. Good point. Next Sunday work for you. Perfect. The idea of speaking to 200 people should have made me nervous, but this wasn't about me performing or proving anything. This was about explaining a problem and proposing a solution. Construction language, basically. Monday morning at the marketing office, I found myself working alongside the same people who'd witnessed Tony's humiliation. The irony wasn't lost on me, but professionalism is professionalism. Mr. Preston, said Jessica, stopping by during her lunch break, I hope this isn't awkward. I mean, working here after everything that happened. Business is business. Personal drama shouldn't affect professional relationships. Still, I felt terrible about that whole scene. We all did. You didn't do anything wrong. Tony made his choices and he faced the consequences. How is Tony doing? In Columbus, I thought about his recent letters, about the jewelry box and photo album he'd returned. Learning, I think? Sometimes people need to lose everything before they understand what really matters. Do you think he'll ever come back to Cleveland? Not my concern anymore. Tony needs to figure out who he wants to be without Rebecca. That's work he has to do himself. Tuesday brought a call from Linda Rodriguez with news about the scholarship fund. The nursing school has everything set up, she said. The first Rebecca Preston Nursing Education Scholarship will be awarded this fall. How much? $15,000 annually. Enough to make a real difference for someone serious about nursing education. Rebecca would have loved that. There's something else. The school wants to hold a dedication ceremony. Nothing big, just a brief program to announce the scholarship and honor Rebecca's memory. When? They suggested March 15th, Rebecca's birthday. The date hit me harder than expected. Rebecca would have been 30 this year. Instead, we'd be dedicating a scholarship in her memory. That sounds appropriate. They'd like you to speak at the ceremony. Just a few words about Rebecca and her passion for nursing education. Another speech, but this one felt different, more personal and important. I'll do it. Wednesday evening, the family support group held its largest meeting yet. 18 people crowded into the hospital conference room, including several families currently dealing with cancer treatment. This is what Rebecca envisioned, I told the group. Practical people sharing practical knowledge to help families survive impossible situations. What was Rebecca like? Asked Maria Santos, whose husband was starting chemotherapy. As a nurse, I thought about how to answer that. She had this way of making you feel like you were the only patient she was caring for, even when she had 6 other people depending on her. She never rushed conversations, never made problems seem trivial. She sounds special. She was, but she was also practical. She understood that families need concrete help, not just emotional support. That's what we're trying to provide, said Sarah. Meal trains, transportation assistance, childcare coordination, insurance advocacy, added Dr. Martinez. Someone to help navigate the paperwork maze. All things Rebecca wished existed when Dorothy was sick, I said. She used to say the medical system was great at treating cancer, but terrible at treating families. Thursday morning brought a surprise phone call. Tony, calling from Columbus. Mr. Preston, I hope you don't mind me calling. I wanted to update you on how things are going here. How are things going better? Different. I'm working for a smaller company now. Less money, but more personal responsibility. I'm actually doing marketing instead of just managing campaigns. That sounds good. It is, and I'm seeing a counselor. Trying to understand why I acted the way I did after Rebecca died. What have you learned? That grief makes you do stupid things, but it doesn't excuse cruelty, and that I spent most of my marriage trying to prove I was worthy of Rebecca instead of just enjoying the fact that she loved me. That was more insight than I'd expected from Tony. I also learned something else, he continued. Rebecca used to talk about you all the time, about how you taught her to work with her hands, how you never gave up on projects even when they seemed impossible. She was a good listener. She said you taught her that the best way to solve problems was to understand them completely before you started trying to fix them. Sounds like something she'd remember. Mr. Preston, I know I don't have the right to ask, but would it be okay if I sent Christmas cards? Not asking for forgiveness or trying to restart a relationship. Just acknowledging that Rebecca's family is still important to me. I considered that. Christmas cards would be fine. Thank you. That means more than you know. Friday afternoon, I finished the conference room wainscoting. 6 weeks of careful measuring, cutting and fitting had transformed a bland office space into something warm and professional. David Chen inspected the work with obvious satisfaction. This is beautiful craftsmanship, Mr. Preston. It changes the whole feel of the room. Good wood installed properly lasts generations. The staff has been watching you work. I think some of them are inspired to try woodworking themselves. It's a good hobby. Teaches patience and precision. Would you ever consider teaching a class? We've got a community education budget. I'm not much of a teacher. Rebecca might disagree with that. Saturday morning, I drove to Lakewood to look at Nancy's house. A 1950s Cape Cod with good bones and 60 years of accumulated problems. Kitchen from the 1980s, bathroom from the 1970s, electrical system that should have been updated decades ago. It's a mess, Nancy said apologetically. But I fell in love with the neighborhood and the original hardwood floors. The structure's sound. Everything else can be fixed. How long do you think it would take? Done right? 4 months. Done fast? 2 months, and you'll hate it in a year. I want it done right. We spent 2 hours going through the house room by room. Nancy had intelligent questions about functionality and realistic expectations about costs. She reminded me of Dorothy in some ways, practical but not cheap, willing to invest in quality. When could you start, she asked. After the church roof project, probably late spring, perfect. That gives me time to save more money and make final decisions about finishes. Sunday morning came too quickly. Standing in the church pulpit, looking out at faces I'd known for decades, I felt the weight of community responsibility. 30 years ago I began. This congregation took a chance on a young contractor who promised to build them a Sunday school addition for cost plus materials. You trusted me to do good work, and that trust changed my life. People were listening, really listening. Now I'm asking for that same trust again. Not for my benefit, but for ours. This roof needs replacing, and we can do it together. Not just paying someone else to fix our problems, but working together to solve them. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Volunteers, financial commitments, offers of equipment, and expertise. By the time I finished speaking, we had enough support to complete the project twice over. After the service, people kept approaching with questions and encouragement. This felt different from the Tony confrontation. This was community building instead of conflict resolution, but the foundation was the same. Respect earned through honest work and quiet strength. February brought unseasonably warm weather and the first concrete steps toward the church roof project. I spent 3 days with Eddie Martinez and 2 other contractors creating a detailed work plan that would maximize volunteer participation while maintaining safety standards. The key is preparation, I explained to the church council. We do all the dangerous work with professionals. Volunteers handle material staging, cleanup, and support tasks. What about insurance? Asked Frank Morrison, ever the practical treasurer. Covered. Eddie's company will supervise the actual roofing work. Volunteers stay on the ground unless they're certified for roof work. And the timeline? Asked Martha Stevens. 2 Saturdays in March. First Saturday, we stripped the old roof and prepared the decking. Second Saturday, we installed the new shingles. Weather permitting, added Pastor Williams. Weather permitting. The planning took weeks, but the preparation was half the success. Volunteer coordinators, material delivery schedules, safety protocols, contingency plans for rain. Rebecca had been right about problem solving. Understand completely before you start trying to fix. Meanwhile, the family support program was taking shape. The hospital had approved funding, volunteers were trained, and we had our first families enrolled. Maria Santos, whose husband was fighting colon cancer, became an informal spokesperson for the program. This is exactly what families need. She told the local newspaper reporter who came to write about the program, someone to help with the practical stuff so we can focus on healing. What kind of practical stuff? The reporter asked. Meal coordination, transportation to appointments, someone to explain insurance paperwork. Things that seem simple until you're dealing with cancer and everything feels impossible, and this program provides all that, plus emotional support from other families who've been through it. Mr. Preston here understands what it's like to watch someone you love fight this disease. The article ran on February 15th with a photo of me, Maria, and Sarah standing in the hospital conference room. Local family creates support network for cancer families, read the headline. Rebecca's name appeared 3 times in the article, along with quotes about her vision for comprehensive family support. Tony called that evening after seeing the article online. "Mr. Preston, I saw the newspaper story. The family support program sounds amazing. It's what Rebecca wanted to do. I know she used to talk about it. Said hospitals were great at treating patients but forgot about everyone else who was affected. That's right, I wanted you to know, I made a donation to the program. It's not much, but I wanted to contribute something in Rebecca's memory that was thoughtful. It's the least I could do. I spent so much time thinking about what I'd lost when Rebecca died. I never thought about what I could do to honor what she'd built. People grieve differently, maybe, but some ways are more selfish than others." March arrived with perfect weather for roofing work. 53 volunteers showed up for the first Saturday, ranging in age from teenagers to Carol Murphy, who was 78 and insisted she could organize supplies better than anyone half her age. She was right. The old roof came off in 4 hours. Volunteers formed assembly lines, passing materials up ladders, while Eddie Martinez and his crew handled the actual stripping and deck inspection. By lunch, we had a clean workspace ready for new materials. "This is better than I expected," Eddie told me during the lunch break. "Your volunteers are more organized than most construction crews. Church people know how to work together, and they listen to instructions instead of trying to prove how much they know." The second Saturday brought an even larger crowd. Word had spread through the community, and people wanted to be part of something positive. Nancy Williams showed up with coffee and sandwiches for the crew. Jessica brought her teenage sons to help with cleanup. Even some of the marketing office people came to volunteer. By 3 p.m., we had a completely new roof. Professional quality work at about 40% of normal cost, with a community that felt more connected than before. "This is what church should be," Pastor Williams said during the blessing ceremony that followed. People working together to solve problems and care for each other. "Rebecca would have loved this," I told the assembled volunteers. "She always said the best way to honor someone's memory is to keep their work alive." March 15th, Rebecca's birthday, arrived gray and cool. The nursing school dedication ceremony was scheduled for 2 p.m., and I'd been thinking about what to say for weeks. The auditorium was fuller than expected. Nursing students, faculty, hospital staff, and people from the community who'd known Rebecca. Tony had driven up from Columbus and was sitting quietly in the back row. Rebecca Preston would have been 30 today. I began when they called me to the podium. Instead, we're here to dedicate a scholarship that will help other nurses follow her example of excellence and compassion. I talked about Rebecca's love of learning, her commitment to patient care, her vision for nursing education. I talked about her belief that nurses could change healthcare by teaching other nurses to think critically and care deeply. This scholarship isn't just about money for tuition, I concluded. It's about continuing Rebecca's mission of making healthcare more human, one nurse at a time. After the ceremony, Tony approached carefully. "Mr. Preston, thank you for letting me be here. Rebecca would have wanted you here. I brought something." He handed me a small wrapped package. "It's not much, but I thought you should have it." Inside was a simple wooden picture frame holding a photo I'd never seen before. Rebecca at the hospital teaching a group of nursing students. She was pointing to something on a patient chart, and the students were hanging on every word. "I took this last spring," Tony said. "She was doing exactly what she loved most, teaching. I thought you should see her the way I saw her at work." The photo captured something essential about Rebecca: the concentration, the passion for sharing knowledge, the natural authority that made people trust her judgment. "Thank you. This means a lot, Mr. Preston. I know I can't undo the things I said and did, but I want you to know that I'm grateful for everything you gave Rebecca, and for the lesson you taught me about respect. People can change if they want to. I'm trying to be someone Rebecca would have been proud of. It's harder than I thought. Most worthwhile things are, that evening I sat in my workshop surrounded by tools and memories. The conference room project was finished. The church roof was complete. Nancy's house renovation would start in 2 weeks. The family support program was helping real families. The scholarship would fund nursing education for years to come. Not bad for a retired contractor who'd spent 3 months being called a burden by his son-in-law. Rebecca's jewelry box sat on the workbench, still playing Amazing Grace when you wound the mechanism. Inside were her nursing pin, Dorothy's earrings, and now the photo Tony had returned. 3 generations of Preston women, each in their own way showing that strength comes in many forms. Dorothy's quiet endurance through cancer treatment, Rebecca's passionate commitment to caring for others, and maybe my own discovery that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is simply refuse to be diminished by someone else's assumptions. April brought new beginnings and familiar routines. Nancy's house renovation started on schedule, with work crews arriving at 7 a.m. and the satisfying sounds of construction filling the Lakewood neighborhood. "This is exactly what I wanted," Nancy said, watching me install the kitchen cabinets. "Someone who cares about getting it right instead of getting it done fast. Good work takes time. Tony used to complain that you were too slow, too careful. He never understood that careful is what makes things last." Nancy had become a friend over the winter months, someone who appreciated craftsmanship and understood the value of patience. Her house was turning into something special, not flashy or expensive, but solid and beautiful in the way that only honest work can achieve. The family support program was expanding faster than anyone had expected. By April, we were helping 12 families navigate cancer treatment, and the hospital was getting calls from other medical centers wanting to replicate the model. "This is becoming bigger than we anticipated," Sarah told me during our monthly planning meeting. "The State Cancer Society wants to fund similar programs at other hospitals." Rebecca would have loved that. She would, but it means more administrative work, more training, more coordination. Are you prepared for that kind of expansion? I thought about it. 6 months ago, I'd been a retired contractor living quietly in a house full of memories. Now I was coordinating community projects, supervising renovations, and helping build programs that would outlast me. Let's see how far this can go. May brought a letter that changed everything. Not from Tony, though he'd been faithfully sending updates from Columbus, not from lawyers or insurance companies. This letter came from the nursing school dean with an unexpected proposal. "Mr. Preston," she wrote, "the Rebecca Preston Nursing Education Scholarship has generated more interest than we anticipated. Several other donors have contacted us about contributing to nursing education programs. We're wondering if you'd consider serving on our advisory board for nursing education initiatives." The letter went on to describe their vision, a comprehensive program supporting nursing education at all levels, from basic training to advanced degrees. Scholarships, mentorship programs, continuing education opportunities, all the things Rebecca had talked about during her illness. "We need someone with business experience and personal understanding of healthcare challenges," the letter concluded. "Someone who shares Rebecca's vision for excellent nursing education." I called the dean that afternoon. "I'm interested, but I'm not an educator." "You don't need to be. We need someone who understands project management, fundraising, and community engagement. Someone who can help us build sustainable programs." "How much time are we talking about?" "1 meeting per month, plus occasional events and fundraising activities, maybe 10 hours a month total." It seemed manageable alongside the renovation work and family support program. "Let me think about it." "Of course, but Mr. Preston, I hope you'll consider this seriously. Rebecca's scholarship has already attracted attention from major healthcare foundations. With the right leadership, we could create something truly significant." That weekend, I drove out to the cemetery for what had become a weekly conversation with Dorothy and Rebecca. The spring flowers were blooming, adding color to the peaceful landscape. "Well," I told them, "it's been quite a year. Tony learned some hard lessons about assumptions and respect. I learned some things too." The wind was gentle, carrying the scent of new grass and flowering trees. "The nursing school wants me to help expand Rebecca's scholarship into something bigger, a whole program for nursing education." A pair of cardinals landed on nearby headstones. Dorothy's reminders still appearing when I needed perspective most. I keep thinking about what legacy really means. It's not about the money you leave behind or the property you own, it's about the positive changes you set in motion. The cardinals flew off together, heading toward the oak trees where new leaves were unfurling. Tony's doing better in Columbus. He's learning to build something for himself instead of trying to inherit someone else's work. Maybe there's hope for him yet. Monday morning brought a phone call from Tony as if he'd heard my cemetery conversation. "Mr. Preston, I have some news. I'm getting married. Congratulations." Her name is Linda. She's a teacher here in Columbus. We've been dating for 4 months. That's fast, I know, but she's different from Rebecca. More independent, more direct about what she expects from relationships. She doesn't let me get away with assumptions. Sounds like a good match. She wants to meet you. Not right away, but eventually. She says anyone who could put up with me for 6 years deserves respect. I'd be happy to meet her. "Mr. Preston, I want you to know something. Linda asked me what I learned from my first marriage, and I told her about the day you came to my office with your lawyer, about learning the difference between earning respect and demanding it. What did she say? She said it sounded like you gave me a gift, even though I was too stupid to appreciate it at the time. Your teacher sounds wise. She is. And she's right. You could have destroyed me quietly, but you taught me a lesson in front of witnesses. Made sure I couldn't pretend it didn't happen. After Tony hung up, I thought about the unexpected ways people change and grow. 6 months ago, I would have bet money that Tony would never understand what had really happened between us. But people surprise you sometimes, usually when you've stopped expecting them to. Tuesday evening, I attended my final church council meeting before starting the nursing school advisory board. The sanctuary roof was holding perfectly. The community outreach programs were thriving, and the congregation had learned something about working together to solve problems. Hank, Pastor Williams, said after the meeting, "I want to thank you for everything you've brought to this church. Not just the construction expertise, but the leadership example. I just did what needed doing. You did more than that. You showed people that quiet strength is still strength, that respect is earned through service, not demanded through volume." Rebecca and Dorothy taught me that, and you taught it to the rest of us. Wednesday morning, I called the nursing school dean with my decision. I'd be honored to serve on the advisory board. Excellent. Our first meeting is next month. I'll send you the background materials. Looking forward to it. Mr. Preston, I think this is the beginning of something really special. Rebecca's vision for nursing education, supported by your business experience and community connections. We're going to change how nurses are trained in this state. That evening, I sat in my workshop for what might be the last time in a while. Nancy's renovation was nearly finished, and the nursing school work would take me in new directions. The tools would be here when I needed them, but my focus was shifting toward different kinds of building. Rebecca's jewelry box sat on the workbench, still playing Amazing Grace perfectly. Inside were her nursing pin, Dorothy's earrings, and Tony's photo of Rebecca teaching students. 3 women who taught me different lessons about strength, love, and legacy. If you're watching this and you've ever been underestimated because of your age, your quiet nature, or your humble lifestyle, remember what I learned. Sometimes the best response to disrespect is simply proving them wrong. Sometimes the most powerful people in the room are the ones who don't need to prove anything at all. Respect isn't inherited. It's earned through character, one choice at a time. And quiet doesn't mean weak, it just means selective. Rebecca and Dorothy would be proud of what grew from the seeds they planted, and that's the only approval that really matters. Sometimes the greatest victory isn't winning the argument, it's teaching someone a lesson they'll carry for the rest of their lives, even when you're no longer around to see how they apply it. True wealth isn't measured by what you accumulate, but by what you build that continues to serve others long after you're gone. Respect, legacy, and the quiet confidence that comes from knowing your life made a real difference.